So let's look at what to cover in June if you are only just starting preparation for your child's 11 plus exams, especially if you're prepping for grammar school selection tests. So in the month of June, we are going to focus on skills development, okay? So if you're watching and you haven't seen the first video in the series, please go and watch what to do in May, because that's a step that we shouldn't really ignore. You need to make sure you've covered all of those steps before you move on to skills development. So I'm going to break down what skills to look at developing or helping your child to develop across the 4 subject areas: English, maths, verbal reasoning and non-verbal reasoning. Now, if you're new to the 11 plus exams, I already have videos on exactly what verbal and non-verbal reasoning covers. Please watch those videos so that you're very clear on what they are, and you know, you'll then obviously be able to help your child as fully as possible. So we'll start with English skills. One mistake that I see parents making all the time is leaving essay writing to the very end. So what's important is that whether the grammar school exam that your child will be taking has either a writing task or has a stage 2 exam which has a writing task, okay? So well, counties that have a writing task usually would be your Medway, for instance. Schools that tend to have a stage 2, schools like St Olave in Orpington under Bromley Borough. You've also got the Sutton grammar schools. So they have a stage 1, which is multiple choice English and maths at the time of recording. And then in stage 2, students are expected to write an essay or write a writing task, okay? So you need to get your child practicing. What many parents do is they wait until September, really October, when they find out whether their child has got into stage 2, or late in September if schools are providing that information. They wait, and then suddenly there's a big panic to get their child's writing up to scratch. Please do not do this, because writing is an area that requires time, and there's no need putting children under unnecessary stress. If all your child has time for is 1 piece of writing a week, it will go a long way in helping them to improve their writing skills in time for the exam. Okay, so writing is important, and you can even get your child writing a diary. Just something as simple as how their day was, etc. It just means that they are becoming more fluid with their writing because they're using those skills. Then we go on to improving grammar and punctuation. Basically, it's very important that this part of your child's English preparation isn't missed. So a way to make it a little less intense is to verbally test your child. So I used to do this with both of my children when they were preparing for the 11 plus exams. We could be in the car and I'd randomly ask them, what is onomatopoeia? What is personification? What's a preposition? And so on. The way that you perhaps do with times tables when your child is learning. All of those areas are important, and so testing them verbally sort of breaks it up, especially if you've had to spend a lot of time on other areas of their preparation. At least this helps to keep everything fresh in their mind. The other important thing is that your child needs to read a variety of text, and this will help to enhance their comprehension and vocabulary. For this reason, Geek School launched something called the Classic Readers Club, and what this is an online reading club with a small cohort of children, and they basically read classical texts. Black Beauty, Tom Sawyer, Treasure Island, all of those types of books which are commonly used in 11 plus exam English comprehension sections. And this really helps them to get to grips with the style of English that we no longer use. You know, the language has come a long way. It's always evolving, and so many children struggle to understand some of the Elizabethan or Victorian era type of writing. So this type of writing in books. So these clubs for year 4 and year 5 are very helpful. And we also have a geek reader's bookshelf. I know it sounds hilarious because it's online, but what I intended with that, as the owner of Geek School, if you didn't know, is to provide a repository. We get asked all the time about reading lists for students, and so instead of just providing a reading list, we actually have the bookshelf, so you can actually access the books that your child needs to read and download them onto their Kindle or, you know, whatever gadget they have, and they can be reading it in the car, reading it on their travels, reading it at home, etc. And you don't have to spend a small fortune buying lots and lots of books. There are more than 300 books in the Geek Readers bookshelf, so there is plenty. So let's look at maths. Maths really requires some basics. Times tables is a basic level of understanding that your child needs to have. And, you know, if you are familiar with my videos here on YouTube, you'll know that I always encourage parents to make sure that your child knows the times tables very quickly. There's no umming and ahhing, no pausing, no need to write things down or count on fingers. Your child needs to be able to say the answer immediately. If they can't, this is going to have a huge impact on their ability to complete the maths paper. So you need to spend some time on times tables, and the best way, I believe, is to just get a times table app and use the doubling method. So if you know your 2 times tables, double it to get the 4, double it to get the 8. With the 3, double to get the 6, double to get the 12, and so on. So now that you are in skills building mode, it's important that you focus also on some of the higher level topic areas, you know, the algebra and the geometry. I will say that I have never seen any 11 plus exam paper that has trigonometry in it. Now, was it last year or so? One parent told me that another mum had said that their child is working on geometry, and I think her daughter was in either year 4 or year 5, and I was just appalled because, first of all, you know, no 10-year-old, unless they're really at that level, in which case we probably wouldn't be thinking of the 11 plus. You know, you get some children who do their GCSE at 8, or their A level at a very young age, or they're doing a degree at a very young age. Those types of children. But for the 11 plus exam, please do not waste time going through GCSE papers. You know, that would be to the detriment of your child really honing in and practicing the key and basic maths knowledge that they need. So your guide will be Key Stage 2 at the very minimum, and there are topics that go beyond Key Stage 2 in the 11 plus maths papers. If you're not sure what they are, I'd suggest that you get a tutor. Get yourself a reputable 11 plus exam tutor. We provide tuition for the 11 plus at our Beckenham and Lewisham centres and online. So get in touch, and, you know, perhaps don't use your child as a guinea pig for this process. You know, the exams are so competitive, you want to get it right. So let's move on to verbal and non-verbal reasoning. Now, once you have done some practice papers with your child, you should start to see a running theme. Questions that they're getting aren't the correct answers for, and gaps in their knowledge. Now, the idea is that you help them understand those areas that they can't get by themselves. And verbal and non-verbal reasoning is one of those areas that many parents shy away from. I'm not surprised, because it's an area that it needs to be taught to the child in terms of the step-by-step, what to look out for, and so on. I'm not a fan of let's try and see, because it's a waste of time. So for that, I really do recommend that you get tuition so that your child can quickly pick up the skills. If you're looking at preparation in June and it's the second month, if you started in May, of real preparation, you don't have much time. So you really need to know what to do in terms of supporting your child. If not, get a tutor. I highly recommend that. So there should be weekly tests. So with all the learning and practice that's going on in your child's schedule, there should be a test paper, so that you can see if there's progress. Now, the minimum score that you should really be expecting your child to achieve, if they are to have much of a chance of passing, is 85%. And it needs to be consistent. Consistently 85, obviously it can go all the way up to 100%, all the better, but no less than 85. So if the scores are less than that, it means that there are knowledge gaps, or perhaps the technique isn't quite right. Some children will sit on one question, until the cows come home, literally. And, if you can avoid that, it will be very helpful. You need to also make a point of reviewing their mistakes. Please avoid just marking papers and giving a score, because what will happen is your child will just make the same mistakes over and over. Why? Because there are clearly gaps that haven't been plugged. So it's important that you go through mistakes with your child, but the actual working through them is what will help your child's score increase, and it will also build their confidence because they'll know what they're doing. Okay. In the month of June, having prepped a bit in May and you're now in June, it means that you need to start setting some realistic goals and setting some targets for each week, the amount of work that is required, how you'll use, the summer holidays. Start thinking about that. I always advise that the summer holiday, as in traveling, is probably cancelled until, the February half term or the October half term, if your child doesn't have a stage 2 exam that overlaps it, just so that your child can just focus on preparation, basically. So that's what I really do recommend. Wishing you all the best in your preparation, and if you're a child who's watching this, keep going. Hard work definitely pays off. Bye.